This work session, regular meeting of the Township Council is called to order. Madam Clerk, please read the Open Public Meeting Act.
In accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of the November 27, 2018 work session, regular meeting of the Franklin Township Council was provided as required by law.
If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and afterwards remain standing for the invocation by Councilman Will Galtieri. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States Republic for which it
As we gather here today as members of the Township Council, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to fellow citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, existing our efforts in those areas, and on those things upon which future generations can build with. Let us continue to strive to make a better world. Amen.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Chase, Councilwoman Francois.
Here.
Councilman Galtieri.
Here.
Mayor Kramer.
Here.
Councilman Onijaka. Councilman Prasad. Here. Deputy Mayor Robinson.
Here.
Councilman Vasanella.
Here.
Councilman Wright.
The next item is the 2018 Environmental Commission Stewardship Award. I have no document in front of me, Madam Clerk.
The Environmental Commission has
This
it.
comes up. Good. Excellent. Thank goodness. Ed, will you please join the Environmental Commission?
Each year, the Environmental Commission awards its Environmental Stewardship Awards for one individual and one, it could be a corporation, it could be any sort of body, organization, which we feel have done, the Commission feels has done the most to advance the good keeping of the environment in the township. And the environment taken very broadly, it can mean saving electricity, saving, protecting us from flooding, as well as saving trees and open space and so forth. But so I'll hand this over to the chairman, Walter Andrews.
Thank you, Ted. First, I want to acknowledge, say thank you to the council, mayor and council for allowing us to present the annual Environmental Stewardship Award. It's one way we can sort of recognize people in the community for helping us do what we do. And we, as Ted said, we have 2 awards. We have the group award or the industry award, as well as the individual award. And so, first of all, I'd like to present the group or individual award to the, we do the individual award first to John Clyde. Is John Clyde here? John, come up. All right, John.
How many years have you been on the Actually, not as long as.
For quite a while, but
Maybe you can sort of share with us. Well, John has helped us out in that he has been the driver and the organizer for stream cleanups in the township for many years. And that means that, you know, he has to go out and sort of scout the areas out. He has to coordinate with the Watershed Institute. He coordinates getting individuals and volunteers to come out. And we schedule the press, and we have a very impressive cleanups in the township over the years due to his organization. So John said this year, well, I'm getting a little old for this. So we said, well, maybe we should get someone else, but we should recognize him for all that he has done. So John, what it says here is recognition of outstanding efforts to protect and preserve the environment through environmental stewardship, innovative thinking, 2018. Want to say a few words?
I will say a couple. Thank you very much, Walter. I want to take this opportunity. I've spent many, many years in this room, and it hasn't changed very much. Mr. Rainone looks just as young as he did 25 years ago.
An award for saying that.
We're in this, yeah. I want to say thank you to the past, present, and future. My involvement in this really came on the shoulders of people like Bruce Hamilton and Jim Moise and Gene Howe and John Luce and others. I want to also say thank you to the present, to this council for continuing this town's legacy in the preservation of open space. We have a lot to be proud of. A lot of green space out there, and it makes this a very, very, very special community. I spent 16 years on the council, but some of my best years in this room has been spent as a member of the environmental people. And I would ask my colleagues on the Environmental Commission, who does such great work, stand up to be recognized. Arnie? Now, I'm retiring, not so much because I'm old, but because I've had some minor health problems this year, and we really need to turn it over to a new person. I want to commend Stan for taking it over, a new member of the commission. April 14th, folks, we're going to be a long 1-mile run. When you get home, mark April 14th on your calendars. It's always a lot of fun. It's always a good day of community service. 2 more things. I thank the past, present, and future in all 3 categories fits Councilman Ted Chase, whose service to the environment in this town has been unparalleled. Finally, this is mine, right?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I'm going to take this home, and I'm going to give it to the person who filled in for me 2 years ago when I had to go and be at my daughter's wedding rehearsal. And that's going to go to my son, Michael, who I think was the best coordinator I ever had. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And next, we want to present the group or industry award to the Franklin Township Board of Education. I believe Nancy LaCourte, the president, is here. Yes, come on up, Nancy. Just want to say a few words. The Board of Education is being recognized for its extraordinary work in building the Claremont Elementary School to we call LEED Gold standards. And there's a long story behind it. They've shared it with us. You know, it started with getting the budget approval and then decided from the beginning, because they say this is the culture of Franklin Township, green. So they began to build the school to those levels. So maybe she'll share a little more, but Nancy, we wanted you to accept this award on behalf of the Board of Education, and it reads, in recognition of the outstanding efforts to protect, preserve the environment through environmental stewardship and education, November 2018. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So on behalf of the Board of Education and our 7,200 plus students, thank you very much. And Ed Potosnik, who was the board president when we started this design and worked on our facilities committee, can talk more about our LEED certification.
I'm right here. First of all, I want to thank the chairman for recognizing this Board of Education and the members of the commission. It's not easy to build a school to LEED Gold standards. One of the challenges is every investment that you make on the front side costs money, and it's taxpayer money, and you want to be responsible with that. But I think the people of Franklin should know and feel very comfortable that the stewardship of your funds is being used in a very positive way that not only benefits the environment, it also helps our pocketbook. The schools can use half the electricity and half the water of our other schools. And over the long run, you're going to recuperate that very quickly, the investments on the front side. Also, it's a laboratory for students to see firsthand what conservation means and how you can protect your environment in a healthy school. And it wasn't easy, because there's a lot of pressures on a budget, but the board stayed committed to the goal and what we had promised to the community, and we're really proud of that. I also want to recognize the council and Mayor Kramer for the help that you guys provided when the board was working on this to help alleviate some of the strain. Our township manager, Bob Vornlocker, reducing the fees to costs for the school rather than, like sort of an inflated version. For what that's worth. But they also helped to expedite those so the school could be built on time. And it opened on time September of this year, and it's an exciting building. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I'm sure President LaCourte can set you up with a tour. We're really proud of the work, but it couldn't be done without the cooperation of everyone involved. And thank you very much for recognizing this, and on behalf of everyone involved. It was a huge undertaking. We thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You got that guy.
Okay. The next item is public discussion. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are open to the public. So it's going to be 5 minutes per person. No yielding of time. You may only come up once. I am going to be very strict about the 5 minutes. When the 5 minutes is up, I will allow you to finish the sentence you were saying, but then I will ask you to sit down. Please state your name and address. Most importantly, you can address us. First of all, you have to address us. You also can say to us whatever you wish to say, anything related to government, but I am going to demand respect to each other. So when someone is speaking, they should be allowed to speak without interruptions. We certainly recognize that when someone's done speaking, a brief applause often happens. I'm not going to try to stop that. But I don't want someone interrupting other people. Tensions are running a bit high. We understand that, but we will show respect in this town as we've always shown respect to each other. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak, please come up.
Robert Troutman, 13 Orchid Court, Somerset. First, I want to welcome Councilman Prasad back after his little vacation he took. I don't recall anyone supporting that and saying we agree to let you take that time off unpaid. So will you refund the salary you received, as well as reimburse us for the health benefits that I believe you received during the time you were away? Second of all, to the rest of the council, you all have a pretty hard job. I make no bones about it. You do something that you think is absolutely right and can't be criticized, and I have a feeling you're going to hear tonight from some people about the left turn onto Easton Ave issue. So that's an issue that, frankly, if I was sitting up there, I wouldn't think anybody would be against, but now we're hearing lots of complaints about that, and I think you're going to hear that tonight. So that being said, with you having such a difficult job, why are you making it even harder on yourselves by carrying Prasad's water? Why are you letting him drag you all down? You can thank him now because he stayed away for the election. That's done. And now you can actually stand up and do what the citizens are asking you to do and demand that he resign. One of you has done it. Councilman Chase managed to do it right in the very beginning. Where are the rest of you on this? Thank you.
Christina Zambri, 3 Buffa Drive. I'd also like to welcome Councilman Prasad back from his little vacation. Again, Rob just pretty much said what we're all feeling. We just don't understand why you continue to let the entire council take heat for one person's actions. We know it's all party politics. We know why he was away during the elections. This is being handed out outside by kids who don't even know what this is about. Again, there's mentions of statues of color and Republicans, and again we're throwing the race card around. Again, we're taking sides, and I'd like to remind everybody that this recall committee is bipartisan. So there are minorities on the committee, there are Democrats on the committee, independents on the committee. So this just isn't a Republican-Democrat thing, and to try to make it out to be that way is asinine. We've been through this already with the race card, the lack of trust, and it's reflecting on the entire council. The fact that it doesn't help that the entire council is made up of Democrats, but you guys are risking your own elections by continuing to support somebody like this. And the way that everything here is worded, and by the way, whoever wrote this needs to go back to Franklin and get an education in English, because the grammar, the spelling, vernacular is horrible. But it makes it sound like we started to say that there were statues of color. Benign Republican Party to attempt the removal of Councilman Prasad from office with claims Republicans don't like statues of color. We ask one simple question: why the Democrats have always taken the black and brown neighborhoods for granted. Republicans answered their own question. Well, there you're saying that you've taken minority communities for granted, and granite, sorry if I'm reading it correctly. And you're making it sound here like we're the ones that started with the race calls. And to ask for support to finish the peace and nonviolence statue, it's a done deal. Money's gone. I don't know why we keep rehashing this and keep trying to bring people in to support it. It's obvious that people don't want it. It's obvious no one missed him when he was gone. And it's obvious that you guys, just by dragging this, you just keep losing the support and the trust of the people of Franklin. So again, I ask Councilman Prasad to do the right thing and just resign, because we will continue to be here every single meeting until he is gone.
Hi, good evening. Rob Peterson, 66 Wilson Road in Somerset.
So again, I'm just going to come up here before this council pretty much at just about every meeting, let you guys know how I feel. I think it's important that we exercise those free speech rights that we enjoy in this country. Mayor Kramer, you talked and opened up about respect. So again, I'm not here to disrespect you or to hoist you upon your own petard or in any way, but I do think it's important that we do talk about respect. You, as a council, should have certain respect. You should earn that respect from us. We, as citizens, should respect your position of authority. You should have respect amongst yourselves. And I just ask, how is that even possible for you guys to look one another in the eye, and especially to look Councilman Prasad in the eye, and understand that he has the best interests of Franklin Township at heart, and not his own agenda, his own set of rules that he thinks he's allowed to play by? How many meetings did he miss? We talked last time, there was a person that got up and spoke about how this is an all-Democratic council, and how somebody else spoke tonight about carrying the water. Those are perfect examples, perfect pictures of how you guys, the portrayal of what is happening here to the people of this town. I don't understand it. I want to know specifically, Mr. Prasad, I would call upon you to do the right thing, to resign. I would call upon the council, if he fails to do that, to ask publicly for his resignation, to come out on record and indicate why you feel that his historical pattern of disrespect for this community and disrespect for each of you on that council is tolerated. I don't understand it. I'd also like to point out, and I'm not going to turn and address anybody, but there is a Recall Prasad movement that is happening within this town, and we are actively engaged in that process, and we're going to see it to fruition. Thank you.
I am Chandrakant Desai, resident of 1 Lindsay Court, Franklin Park, and I am most of the time always over here to see that and to help the council, the things which are beneficial to our township. Now, what I personally feel, that this Peace and Non-Violence Memorial is not Rajiv Prasad's issue. It should be the issue of all of us. We all should be prepared to support it and see that it is our issue, it is our problem, and we should resolve it as early as possible, so that council can concentrate on many other things. There are so many other things for our township which are pending. So we should see that this particular issue has to be resolved positively, and we should then concentrate on many other things. Now, one more thing, that every alternate day I find in the news that there is some shooting in this state, that state, here, there, everywhere. In the United States, it is something like a big disgrace to the American community that such things are happening. And then we silently, just on TV or in the news, we just silently see that thing and forget about it. That is something very ridiculous. Two things can be done. Gun control. Thousands and thousands of people gathered in Washington, D.C. to see that gun control can be done. Neither the president, nor Republicans, nor Democrats, they all speak about something, but they don't do anything. And we also are the spectators, silent spectators of all those things. So one thing is legally or legislatively something has to be done. And second thing is, we should change the mindset of all the people. Mindset. And mindset has to be for peace and non-violence. Mindset is for living in this community very amicably, lovingly. And that's what we are not doing. And when Rajiv Prasad brought this particular thing, this particular issue, that we should consider that as not Rajiv Prasad's issue, it's our issue. We should highly appreciate him. He is working hard for that one. But we all should work hard for it and see that it is materialized. And if we don't do it, we are not changing the mindset of the people. Such statues should not be only in Franklin Township. It should be at so many places. And when our kids going to the school, they will see those statues. Who is this guy? Oh, I see. Let me see who is this guy. Then they will read in the library. They will find out what they are doing and what is their personality and what is their message. And that will help our country. That is a very important thing. And that's what, when he's advocating for that one, why should anything should come? Supposing he might have, we are not perfect, we are all human beings. Every one of you and even me can make mistakes. Even presidents have made mistakes. Mistakes, we should ignore it in the interest of the very important message that is going to be there through this particular monument. So I think you are all very wise people. I don't have to tell it, but still I have some right if you recognize me. I am on Thanksgiving, it was my birthday, and I completed 87. Maybe I'm big brother of most of you. If I have that heart to tell you that please do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Desai.
Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. First, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Steve Hillinger, the creator of SpongeBob, who made my parenting experience really great. I don't know, there's a lot of silly stuff with there. If you ever see Patrick raising the scallops, it's one of the best episodes ever. But I also listen to the fun song, and it's Plankton and SpongeBob talking. And I suddenly realized, it's you and me. I am SpongeBob, you are Plankton. I am so infuriatingly naive, okay? And you're just like, what are you doing, okay? Anyway, Ms. Robinson, when you were speaking, last couple meetings actually, one of the problems with what the president does is he says things that are just so wild that people talk about what he said, not the intent of what he said or what the actual topic is. So, and he makes it personal. And I realized for me, I can't speak for everybody else in this room, but you kind of said it's getting personal, and it may a little bit, but that's not the point. For me, it is, I felt town council was malfunctioning as a body. As a body, has nothing to do, sure I have feelings. You know my feelings. You know exactly what I'm thinking, okay? So I felt it was my responsibility to call you out on that, okay? So by making it personal or making people believe it's personal, it distracts them from the issue, okay? It's why you have balanced government. You have Republicans and Democrats because it forces everybody to stay in the middle, okay? When you go one way or the other, okay, that's when things go wrong. Okay, that's the issue. The issue is you guys could not contain yourselves or manage yourselves correctly as a government body, period. All the other stuff is garbage, okay? Thank you.
Benjamin Guy, 35 Patton Drive. So I guess we're back at it again. This is ridiculous. Me personally, this is just from an outside point of view, and also being not really being in tune with why this started, because out of all the conversations that we're having right now, really we're talking about statues at this specific time frame, and statues that represent symbolism. We're not really talking about nothing else right here. We're not talking about no government issues, funding, no nothing else. We're talking about statues for the last maybe like 7 months. This is how long it's been going. It's actually 2.5 years, because this started with actually a park issue, and it's been going on since then. So I'm a little confused on what's going on. And the second thing is the undertone that's actually being presented here, like this is about a person. And we're talking about this from a government standpoint, because if you hear the rhetoric that's been going on for the last maybe 6 months with this pretty much to happen around election time frame, there's a slight undertone that's actually going on with it. And I think most people don't understand and not paying attention to it, but let's call it what it is. Like I said, none of this stuff happened beforehand, before an election period. Now we're going into 2 different election periods going forward at all, because of what is actually being presented at all. And now we have a narrative of saying that we needed a diverse council, balanced government, and some other stuff that's here. But where was this talks about 2.5, 3 years ago, when we had Mr. Levine and Mr. Kelly over here representing Franklin also? Where was that talk then? Seems like something's wrong right now. Seems like it's a different narrative that's actually being created around a person just to get talking points. And I think it needs to stop, because I know what's coming from. And like I said, again, the person that can stop it is letting it go on. And I don't understand why. And like I said, again, if there is something else that person wants to say and letting everybody else say it, then they need to speak for themselves. And like I said, it needs to, it needs to stop. Because all this stuff that's going on in town doesn't need, it has nothing to do with that person. So my thing is that I'm telling that person now, you need to stop it, because it's under your watch. Because again, this is all because of that specific person that, that doesn't want, doesn't want this to stop. They can stop it. So that is the only thing I want to say. Thank you.
My name is John Crowley. I'm 121 Johnny Bush Avenue. My problem is with the left-hand turns on Eastern Avenue. And I know you're probably catching a lot of flack over it. If you don't make the turn, you have to go down to Demont Lane. Willow is not a legal U-hit turn. So you're talking about it being a green township. Okay, you're putting everybody down. It's like half a mile down, half a mile back, and gasoline spent every morning to make that U-turn on Demont Lane. And you're creating probably what's not observed. If you go down and sit at, I think it's 2nd Street in Willow, you'll see people making the right-hand turn, coming up Willow, turning into the Children's Center, making a legal U-turn in the Children's Center, turning back around and coming back around to make the U-turn. If they don't, they go back up to the driveway of the first house. If not, they try to make a 4-corner turn. These are close and tight streets over there, not really built. It's not safe because the road divides because of the lack of sewer system and water runoff. So therefore, you take a chance of running off the side of the road or damaging your car, making a 4-corner turn on Wilson. And you're creating a nightmare in the morning time. Now, I can understand if you turn around and you said, okay, I'm going to restrict it to certain periods of time, high traffic areas and such like that, to make it a safety standard. I get up, I leave at 4:45 in the morning. There's me. There's no one else on the road, just me. Okay, and now I have to drive all the way down to Demont Lane to make a U-turn from my community that I've been driving out of for 14 years. Okay, if you look at all the accidents, was a person living in that community? No, it was somebody who was lost, made a U-turn, made a turn, came up Lakeside, turned around, made a turn on some of the other side streets. There's people driving through the streets, have no idea that the only 2 streets that go across are 4th Street and 9th Street. Otherwise, you got to drive all the ways up to the end of the community to go across to come down to Wilson. Or you have to go all the ways out to the park to go over to Demont Lane to come down and make the turn on Demont Lane to the traffic light. I don't think there was anybody who got a traffic survey that was done and has permission. Not for nothing, but you're allowing left-hand turns into the Imperial. Why? You're allowing left-hand turns in and out of the shopping plaza where they have bottled craft liquor. Now, people can make the left-hand turn by going out onto Cedar Grove Lane and making the turn with a light, rather than going across 4 lanes of traffic to make their left-hand turn. It's just not right to turn around and tell all these people that you're going to have a jam up at 8 o'clock in the morning with everybody stuck at a light at Willow waiting for a 45-second light for them to cut across. You better rethink it. Also, another thing is, if you take a look at it, people are making U-turns. They make a right turn on Culver, Willow, Wilson, and Lakeside, get in the middle of the blocks, and then just put their directional on and turn and make a left-hand turn into driveways on properties that are on the riverside. Then back out of that side. I think that's a lot more dangerous than making a left-hand turn at Lakeside. If you put up a traffic light, I could understand. Put a traffic light up in the middle between Willow and Cedar Grove Lane. That might be a better idea than to just block off an entire community.
Hey, everybody. Left-hand turns, not good.
Name and address, please.
Lori Crowley, 121 Johnny Bush.
Thank you very much.
Easton Farm area is a beautiful little section of Franklin. Unfortunately, the streets were not laid out appropriately. Everything dead ends. So, for instance, my block dead ends at 1st Street. It also dead ends at 11th Street. Nowhere to go. So now I have to go all the way to 4th Street, which is the 1st street, to take me to Willow. Otherwise, I go down a block, get stuck, have to make a U-turn, go down another block, get stuck, have to make a U-turn. There's school buses with little kids when I leave. Their parents have no idea of what to do with them. They're running around. You have multiple cars coming down streets fast because they're lost. Because, of course, you go down this street, you think you can get out. You can't. These people that are doing this are not from the community. They're coming off of Easton Avenue. You thought you were creating a better situation by doing this, by making the no left turn. In the end, you're going to have more accidents, more traffic, and more problems. If you have a traffic light put either on, well, Cedar Grove Lane has a traffic light. So if you put one on Culver, or you put one on Walnut, or you put a U-turn somewhere in that vicinity, you left us in this little hole. I feel so claustrophobic now. Yes, it's a mile for me to go down to Willow now and turn around and go a mile back in the other direction because I have to take 287. Has this really helped? Are you going to help anybody? I've lived in the community in Easton Farms 14 and a half years, in Somerset 30 years. Okay? This is not the first time that you guys have done something like this, but this is the first time that I saw it done in a solid week with nobody liking it. Something needs to be done. A traffic light would be perfect. I would get people to sign it. It would be beautiful. What it is now, you're going to have a worse situation as the timing goes on. Thank you very much for hearing me. I don't really know the whole situation with Prasad. I don't know the whole situation with this whole board. I do know that decisions need to be made. No one here is happy. You know, you can tell it. It's like a very, very stormy environment. I feel very sorry for you guys. I think you have a very hard job. Please rethink what you did on Easton Avenue with those left-hand turns.
I don't want to get into a discussion, but I'm just saying, where would you suggest the traffic light to be?
Personally, I live off of Lakeside. I think that would be too close to Cedar Grove Lane. So I would say Culver.
Okay.
That's,
Fine. I don't want
okay.
to get into a discussion. I
no,
just wanted to
I
complete your
would say
statement.
Culver only because it's a further enough, it's like a distance between Willow and Cedar Grove Lane.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I just ask her one question?
Sure.
You said you live on Johnny Bush. What number Johnny Bush?
121.
121. So you're all the way down by
I'm at a dead
all the way at the end.
Correct.
And you say you take 287 to work.
Correct.
So I'm confused as to what you said, that this is causing you to drive miles out of your way.
I have to go all the way to Willow.
So you have to go to Willow, which is two,
To the left,
which
to
is 3 blocks from Johnny Bush. So
No,
you're
no, no,
crossing
no, no.
Culver to Walnut to Willow
3
to
blocks
Easton.
that way, and then
And you
like a
could make,
mile
and
down.
previously you could make a left-hand turn onto Easton Avenue during morning
Every
rush hour?
morning.
Really? Okay.
Every morning I leave at 6:45.
The traffic counts that we did there, that's why I'm asking,
I've never
indicated
seen
that
it.
there were about 7 people that did that during the course of the peak hours. Plural.
Which question for you, when did you do the traffic
The
counts?
county did those traffic studies in May of 2018.
Truly? Is there,
Truly,
is
yes,
there,
absolutely.
Can I see
Sure.
some paperwork
You can
on
talk
that?
to Sergeant Hagman in the Traffic Bureau. This traffic study was done
How are we
in
doing on
May.
time?
of
How would I go about getting that? Because I know a
Just
few
make
people.
Make an
Madam
inquiry to
Clerk.
Sergeant.
Time?
Yeah.
Are we over time? No. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
So you should just simply make an inquiry. You can make an Oprah request to the police.
Okay,
It was done by
so
Somerset County Engineering.
So that would be Somerset County that
That's
I would
correct.
contact?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ed Potasnik, 163 Home Street. I just wanted, as many of you know, I'm Executive Director of New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, a statewide environmental nonprofit. And I wanted to say thank you to the Franklin community, members of the council, Mayor, specifically Councilman Chase, for coming out earlier this month to the Board of Education at the high school. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection had an open hearing about the Northeast Enhancement Supply Project, the compressor station proposed for Trap Rock Quarry on Route 27, which poses grave threats to our community. It was a huge turnout of folks that were very articulate, really studied up on the impacts of unnecessary fossil fuel expansion, some of the lies and misinformation from the Williams Transco company. It was held in a very respectful manner, and people really stuck to it. Over, like I said, 120 people that were there. Assemblyman Danielson, Senator Bateman sent a staff member. It was really a good showing of unity around an issue that we all face, and particularly this council has been really active on this issue from the Public Board of Health meeting and calling folks in. And just want to say that this is a marathon, as they say, and not a sprint. It's a long haul. It'll probably be another year or so, and that we all should stay vigilant and engaged. But it was quite an impressive turnout, and we just got to keep the faith that the right will prevail in the end. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vinod Gupta. I live at 8 Eagles Pass. I want to say a few words about Councilman Rajiv Prasad, who has been under fire from his own colleagues, people, and press lately. I'm not going to lecture what you should do, shouldn't do. You people are responsible representatives of people. So I'm going to share only my personal experience, just personal experience with this gentleman. I have known Mr. Prasad for the last 5 years, and I do not know what happened in the past, but out of my personal experience for the last few years, I can only say that I have seen him working honestly and sincerely for integration of Indian American community with the mainstream. He works hard. He would answer my calls 2 p.m. or 2 a.m. alike. I saw him leading the fight against the compressor, along with many others, including Ed. That will affect not only just Indian community, is going to affect all Americans from all residents of all ethnicities. He was there at every town hall we organized, whether it's in support of fight against compressor, motivating party members to participate in democracy by pulling them to the polling stations. He was on roads with us on hot days as well as rainy weekends when we were doing a road-to-road campaign for our own dear Councilman Ted Chase. And the results speak for themselves. Mr. Prasad came under fire when he was pursuing the Peace Memorial. The biggest concern, as far as I can, are two: lack of transparency and funding source. Agree, both are valid questions. Since I've been watching the proceedings of this council for last a few years, I noticed that this question was being discussed for a long, long time. Someone said 6 months, another one said 2.5 years, and I think for more than 10 years. So I do not know how come anybody could say he was keeping the things secret to his chest. I think this was approved by this council a few months ago and previous council. In principle, yes, I know, in principle, subject to legalities and availability of funds. But nobody can say that this was not known. This issue was kept to his chest. Funding, I think I initially got an impression as if the funding is coming from some terrorist organization. No. When he brought the donor in person in front of you people, it turned out to be one of the most respected citizens of this township, Dr. Naresh Sharma. He's a very well-respected citizen of this township. He donated money in memory of his loving wife who departed this earth a few months ago. What a wonderful gesture. So, I'm convinced, and everyone should be, that the money was not coming from illegal sources. One could debate that he should have disclosed it much earlier, sure. But the bottom line is that the money source was not illegal. Was it a crime? No. Could he do better? Oh, absolutely. The question is, we should ask, what we are going to do? Are we going to live in the past? Or we are going to prepare for the future, better future? And I think the answer is very simple, Mr. Mayor. Forget the past. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Forget the past. Let's worry about future. Let's worry about future. We are not going to tear this gentleman who has been on council for the last 12 years. He got the mandate. He got the vote from these very people. He's not illegally sitting there. He got our mandate.
Address the council, and your time is up.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Joe Horling, 84 Johnny Bush Avenue. Here to talk about the no left turn ban.
Sure.
As was stated by Mr. Vornlacher, 7 cars in that morning time frame. If that is true, why ban left turns? If it doesn't seem like a lot of traffic, I don't understand the ban for that road at all. I do agree that a traffic light would help alleviate all the problems right in the middle at Culver Avenue, Culver Street actually, because it's in the middle of the 3 ban turns. I just don't think that there was any consideration taken in such a quick time period for the effect that it was having on our very small residential roads. As was stated earlier, they're not designed for this kind of traffic flow. A lot of the lefts and rights have depressed storm drains. I can't make a turn on the left 4th Street from my road to get out of my neighborhood without having to go on the other side of the road. I leave early enough to where it doesn't bother me, but later on in the day, my wife has told me There's a lot of traffic. School buses, morning time, afternoon time, people waiting for their kids, parking on the side streets, kids walking. There's no sidewalks, there's no curbs in the entire neighborhood. It's just roads. And they're high humped and they curve down. And it's very hard to, it's just not designed for two-way traffic in and out to have one exit out of that neighborhood, which is really what you've limited us down to. I mean, you can go out, if you're going out the back, you go to New Brunswick Avenue, but to get out on Easton Avenue, there's one way in. I mean, there's multiple ways in, but there's still only one way out. And that's, I think, causing a lot of the problem. And I just don't know if it was completely thought out or if a traffic study was even done on our streets as a result of this, or how many people make lefts. I know the county did an assessment. Did the county do assessments on the people turning out, or was it just people turning into our neighborhood?
Both,
It was done on both? And is that when they used the strips along the road to track that?
among other
See, I
things.
don't-
Yes, there were in-person counts as well. For the peak
Because I don't
hours,
ever-
it was done with a person sitting at the intersection doing the counts.
I just don't ever remember.
And this wasn't done quickly. This discussion and studies and this stretch of Easton Avenue has been looked at for as long as I've been involved, back to 1999, and the issues that have existed along that stretch of Easton Avenue, and it turns in and out. It's not new.
Mr. Vornlocker, I don't want you to use all this time. Go ahead,
I
sir.
mean, Easton Avenue is one thing, but
Ask me a
was
question.
studies done on our roads? That's my main question, is that was there any studies done on the effect of all these cars now having two main roads to get to Willow to get out?
I would be more than happy to talk to you about this, but I think that I have a number of different opinions on it, and I've been involved in this for a great length of my career, and I would disagree with a number of things you're saying. I'm not going to sit here and have that discussion here in this
No,
forum.
I
I think that you're looking at things a little bit differently than perhaps
I'm looking at it as a resident that lives in a neighborhood that does not
Like I
have
said,
roads designed for
the cars that are driving on these roads are the cars that were already there. By your own, the group that's spoken so far said that these are people who live in these neighborhoods that are driving on them. There are a number of different ways, and in the interest of safety, it was recommended as a result of a number of different studies that these turns be restricted. And the safety factor is one where you're prohibiting movements on a road that has a high speed limit versus 25-mile-an-hour speed limits, and the neighborhood traffic versus the high volume of traffic on Easton Avenue and the inability to turn safely onto that road or off of that road making left turns. That's why it was done.
Right, and I understand.
And that needs to be the consideration that we give. Injuries are far more severe at speeds like 45 and 50 miles an hour than the neighborhood traffic speeds that are being traveled on Culver and Johnny Bush
We haven't seen
and
the
Willow.
effect yet. We don't know what the effect's going to be because there's more cars now.
Well,
that
they're
are being
not
shuttled out.
more cars, they're just on different streets, and people will ultimately find different ways to
There are no
go,
other
which
ways.
is what our
There's two main
experience
roads
is.
that connect, and that's the problem. There's two roads that connect Johnny Bush to Willow. Two. Every other
Mhm.
road dead ends. So if you go down 3rd Street, you can't get to Willow. If you go down 7th Street,
I was a police officer here for 27 years. I know those roads as well as anyone.
roads
Trust
go
me, I know where they come out.
Please let him speak.
Two roads connect Johnny Bush to Willow. That's it. Two roads. You are now forcing every resident there that could usually make a left onto Easton Avenue from Lakeside, Culver, or Walnut, whoever they live closer, at whatever time of day that they deem safely to get across that road, all right, you're now shuttling them to one road to a traffic light, all right, down two main roads to get there. Go look at 4th Street. Go there tomorrow, look at 4th and Johnny Bush, and tell me that two cars can safely pass on that road. They can't. It can't be done. It can't be done on any of those streets because of the depressed storm drains. It can't be done. So that's, I mean, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, how's everybody? Johnny's Tibbs, 25 Parkside, Somerset, New Jersey. First of all, let me be emphatically clear. I never called nobody a white racist. I may have used that term in terms of a conversation, but I don't know a Republican racist. I'm going to say it again. I do not know a Republican racist. I never have. If they were, they never told me about it. I want to be clear with Bill Bowman, your buddy back there. You know what I mean? I want to be quite clear. The only thing I do is try to be a human relations specialist. Now, my language might be a little, you might not like it, but it's going to be the truth. And I'm not no racist. I go to church every day, man. I love everybody. So don't even think about me being racist. It might be a few guys in here, it might be. I don't know. But, it's, I want to congratulate Chanel Robinson for a wonderful, wonderful job. Well done, sweetheart. You deserve being a freeholder in Somerset County, where we have many, many more. During that election, I want you guys to understand, that election was by the people, voted those people in. Your community voted those people in. The town voted those people in. Now, Bob Fullacker, you have a good heart. I know you got a good heart. I know you do. I don't like it being tainted by what's going on here in the township. We have another election that we're trying to win, and a sheriff deputy at Somerset County, a sheriff of Somerset County. And I do not like, Mayor Bill Kramer, what's going on for the past 3 years. Now, 3 years ago, before you took office, we were the 5th community in this country to live in. Based on the atmosphere, your marriage to the Republican Party, your marriage to the hate group has brought us down to 159th. Now, as some gentleman said a few minutes ago, that it has to stop. It's your responsibility, even since the boy got killed in this community. It was under your watch. The Catawba Park mess was under your watch. The Middlebury Park mess was under your watch. Now, one of your own comrades, Democrat, that has supported you ever since you came in this town. You support everybody on that council ever since we came in this town. It is time to stop. To stop feeling you have to have total control over everybody on the council because it's not getting nobody nowhere. It's only causing more rift. There's gentlemen back there now, I know they don't like the things I say, but I love them anyway, and they know they have to smile because I don't hate them. They know I don't hate nobody. But for you to continually marriage other different parts of this community, and you being the mayor, you should be ashamed of yourself. And it's time for you to stop. And for further, in terms of the bus being built, I had some white and black kids tell me that would be a wonderful thing that Franklin Township could be a part of, to be proud of, for kids can come around the community, can go to somebody and see those statues being built by the community people in Franklin Township. As far as Rajiv being recalled, that is an asinine idea. He's one of the most forgiving people in this town, have always worked hard for every one of you guys. You too, Kimberly. You know, he's worked very hard for every one of you guys. Jim Bass, where's Jim Bassnell at? My God, you wouldn't be sitting there with me for him. And you know what I'm saying, too. You would not be on that. They've been trying to get rid of you for 6 years. And you know who I'm talking about, too. They've been trying to get rid of you. And because of us, because of him, that's why you're still sitting there. And the rest of the people on the council. The only reason why you're there is because of that man sitting over there.
Your time is up, Mr. Tibbs.
Yes, I know it is, Mr. Mel Kramer. But I think I said what I wanted to say. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Good evening to all. My name is Josh Brambert, 44 Timber Hill, Franklin Park. I'm here to welcome back Mr. Prasad to the council. May he continues to do the great job serving the Franklin residents. Franklin Township is a cosmopolitan county, and he served many different communities admirably, and he may continue to do so. I represent the Indo-American Residents Association of Franklin Park. We will voting continuously in the month of December and next election. Thank you very much.
Good evening, gentlemen. Santosh Cavallo, 14 Girard Avenue, Somerset, New Jersey, 08873. I know I've heard some people say mistakes can be made, let's move forward. Mistakes can be made once, mistake can be made twice. We are in the country where baseball is the national pastime. 3 strikes, you're out. Mr. Rajiv Prasad, it's time for you to resign. I do not know who distributed this. I'm a registered Democrat. Tibbs.
Address the council. Mr. Tibbs, I control this meeting, not you.
I'm a registered Democrat. And I'm, by my color, you can very well tell I'm not white. I'm brown. I'm opposed to the statues, not because of the statues, because of the due process was not followed. Let me address another issue here. Councilman supported all the financial, supported all Democrat candidates, so that gives him a pass to do anything? Is that probably why most of the councilmen are sitting quiet? Because he helped you. I've also heard somebody just come in and say, Mr. Vasanella wouldn't be here if not for, and he said, you know what that is. I do not know what that is. That means he has given everybody a favor. Quid pro quo. Follow the money. When I first came here, I said, follow the money. Mr. Rajiv Prasad interfered in a council case against a tenant and made it settle. And the tenant, the complaint was from me. If I knew that he was going to help, it's written here. Councilman Prasad always progressively institute programs for his sector of individuals and this community. He did not consider, I'm the same sect as him. They were illegal tenants. They roomed, boarded the house with 8 bedrooms. I've submitted into the Township Council pictures of, which was on Zillow. That was a house with 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 people being rotated into the house every week. Cars parked illegally. I called the Township policemen. There were cars parked on this side, illegally parked. Nobody could go in. There was no shoveling. He helped settle the case by working with the township judge who he appointed. So you're going to tell me that he follows the process? The statutes were already ordered. Yes, the councilman, the lawyer here sat and told us that in 2008 that thing was void, if I remember correctly. It was just agreed that the statues might be coming where, but it was already ordered through China to India, and the statues are sitting in somebody's house. Yes, somebody donated the money, but the due process was not followed here. So I asked all the councilmen here, from what I've heard the statements, that means that all of you got help from him. That's why you do not have the guts to tell him to resign. That means money is gone or some other help has been given to you guys. This is not about, somebody mentioned, this was the 5th township in the country. Yes, I mentioned that point last meeting too. We want to be back there. We don't need statues. We don't need another Charleston. We don't need statues. We are an integrated community. There's no brown, white, black, GOP, Republican, Democrat, independent. It's not about that. This is about the due process and following the process and making sure that you are taking care of all the people, not just your people. If we start taking care of our own people, then we are in trouble as a country. I know there are a couple of temples that are illegal here. I know that he has been helping them. If I start naming the names and bringing things outside here, there will be a lot more things coming up here. This is not about white, brown, black. This is not about statutes, this is about due process, this is about following the law, this is about making sure that we as a community go back to number 5th or number 1 in the country. And for that, we don't need this type of advertisement. This is not the right type of advertisements for Franklin Township, for a councilman to be. He just came back today because after this
That's your time.
day, he will not be able, he had to vacate the seat. That's the only reason he came back today.
Your time is up.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Skip Schaefer, 2 Lair Terrace, Somerset. Just to address some comments from previous speakers. The one gentleman frustrated that there seems to be a cloud over these chambers brought on by one man and his actions, and he's totally correct in that evaluation. Another gentleman comes up here and says, you know, forget about all the mistakes that were made, forget about all the wrongs that were committed. You know, let's just move forward. Let's just forget the past. You know, I'd like to ask that gentleman, is that what he actually teaches his children? That when you do something wrong, you're not held accountable. That when you do something wrong, there's not a penalty to pay. There's going to be a cloud over this chamber, and it's brought on by one person and his actions over the last 3 years. And I don't want to hear any comments from council that this is a personal attack. You know, he might be a great father and grandfather. He might be a scratch golfer. He might throw a Diwali party at home that beats everybody else. He might be good with his hands building something. I don't know. I don't care. His actions in this chamber, representing the people of this township over the last 3 years, he's proven himself to be morally and ethically challenged with his actions. He's proven himself to be a liar multiple times, to accept no responsibility, to show no remorse for these actions. It's not personal attacks. It's his actions in these chambers that demand that he resigned. And I hope, sir, that's the only reason you came in here tonight, was to resign. Because until you are gone, there will continue to be a cloud over these chambers. We will not forget your actions. We will continue to remind the council of the shame and embarrassment you have brought on them over the last 3 years, multiple times. Why they want to work with you is beyond me. Your usefulness and your effectiveness as a council person in this town is over. It's done. Everybody's asking, can't we forgive? Yeah, well, we can forgive you, but, you know, enough is enough. You got to be held accountable. When you resign, then there'll be some forgiveness and healing happening in this town. Until then, it's not happening. So again, I hope the only reason you showed up tonight was not to save your seat, but to resign your seat.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Oh,
That's what she's writing you a note.
Okay, the deputy mayor wrote me a note, and I couldn't understand why, and it's because she has laryngitis.
Sorry.
I have laryngitis, it says right here. That's good to know. Are you moving to close the public portion? Is that what you were also doing?
Second.
As I move to close this public portion.
That's the voice of freedom, everybody. We have a motion and a second to close the public portion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. We are closing the public portion. So it is now time for council comments and committee reports. Mr. Wright, let's start with you.
Pass to Dr. Chase.
Okay, Mr. Wright, you tend to like to come up for seconds. You want to take a moment and pause and think? Got something else to say later, or you got it all?
I got to save some type of surprise for you.
No. I prefer it all here.
Well, if you want to get it all now, then I'll just jump down to the consent items, and we'll do it that way.
No, that's later.
Well, you asked. And
Okay, I'm losing this battle. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Mr. Chase?
We had a meeting of the Public Works Committee beginning at 5:30 this afternoon, although I got there about 10 of 6 because I'm also teaching at Rutgers and students had questions after the class. I'm happy to report that the Little Rocky Hill water main relining is about half done. But the effort will now shut down for the winter because we don't want the water freezing in the bypass pipe, which is above ground, and it will resume in the spring. They'll begin rebuilding the booster pump that's in the little building at the corner of 518 and 27 as early as February. I hope sometime next summer the project will be complete and everybody can have 100 pounds per square inch pressure in the line instead of the 20 pounds there is now. There was a good deal of discussion about a proposed ordinance for requiring water department customers who have the large meters and buy a lot of water requiring them to have their meters tested once a year, just to be sure that they are accurately reporting the amount of water that these large users are using, because if their meters are under reporting, then the rest of us are, in a sense, paying for their getting some extra water for free. But this is an ordinance that's in preparation. We have a couple of other ordinances that are not close enough to preparation to bringing to council to talk about. We're having an assessment of all of the capital assets of the water system, both the water mains and the tanks, the pumping stations and everything. This is in part because the Department of Environmental Protection is requiring this. We'd have to do it by sometime next summer, but we start doing it now. We will be ahead of the game and be able to use the assessment in deciding what, if any, capital projects we need to undertake in the 2019 budget. The Department of Public Works has been assessing the condition of all the roads in the township. They go out, several different people separately, to assess the condition of the roads and get a consensus. And this is what we base what roads we pick for repaving each year. So that's being done. It's about 50% done now. It should be completed by next February. And there's another ordinance that is being revised, but it needs to go through another round of revision and then come to council early in the new year. So that's my committee report. I think the one thing I'd comment on otherwise, and I've already commented on to the manager who's agreed with me, that Unfortunately, in the last snowstorm, the police closed off Route 518 at Carroll Place, diverting all the traffic down Old Georgetown Road and up Old Georgetown Road, which does have some steep portions in it that, under the conditions during the snowstorm, some vehicles were unable to make it up, so the whole road rapidly became jammed up, and you couldn't go up or down, and I was sitting there for half an hour within sight of my house, unable to get to my driveway. So I hope next time they close off 518 at Route 27 while allowing those of us who live on Old Georgetown Road to make our way home, but not the through traffic. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chase. Councilman Prasad.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to be back here to serve the voters that elected me, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I will continue to do so to the best of my ability. I was glad to see the sidewalks on Girard and Belmar. It's been a long time coming. We fought for that budget over the years, and we finally, it's a reality. And the old high school, the kids were unsafe walking on the streets, and now I'm glad that at least they'll walk safely off the street and on the sidewalk. But hearing your comments about the situation with Johnny Bush and your turning radius, etc., these are old neighborhoods that never had sidewalks, and we never covered up the drainage drainage systems, and maybe we should be budgeting, and please don't let us forget it as we come up to the budgeting cycle. Remind us so that we can do it piecemeal, but we'll get it done, just like we did with Girard and Belmar and other places where there are people at risk, pedestrians at risk, and also motorists at risk. So that may be a good idea for us to consider, Mr. Manager, down the road as we look into our budgets for the upcoming fiscal years. Other than that, thank you for your input about the situation, and we'll take that into consideration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad. Mr. Vasanella, Councilman Vasanella.
So, Dr. Chase described the Public Works meeting pretty well. There's some more ordinances in the works that will come forward. As far as the Easton Avenue, I don't live there, so I'm not suggesting I know exactly what's going on, but I can see how it could be an inconvenience. I think the overall safety issue is the most important issue at hand. There's people that have come, I live down towards the other end of Easton Avenue, and for years, people still asking about a light near the intersection of Oakland, which is by Harrison Towers. To me, it sounds a good idea. I hear that it's too close to the other light, or I've heard it's too expensive. I've heard it can work. So I'm open to exploring a light down, I'm going to say the other end of Easton where you're at. Councilman Galtatari and I are constantly discussing Easton Avenue. We're not trying to avoid the issue, but honestly, it is a county road. We're fortunate enough to have Chanel Robinson, who's going to be a county freeholder soon. I know we've already discussed issues with her, but before she was elected, obviously, it was not worth getting into too deep, and fortunately now she'll be representing us there. So I do hope you have an opportunity to speak to Mr. Vornlacher, because his experience is really valuable. Besides being a police officer, he also was in charge of traffic safety for a long, long time and knows this town as good as anybody. I know I've had many discussions and debates when he was a representative on the Public Safety Committee, which now he's the manager and also involved in that committee. But safety is the most important. Avoiding as many serious accidents is the #1 priority. Trying to create as convenient of a situation we're concerned about, but in a way that has to be the second priority. So again, he may be able to clarify some of the facts that you brought up here, or were a little, let's just say, maybe there was some confusion over. As far as lights and as far as any other type of traffic calming efforts we could do, we're constantly looking at them. And we may have a resolution coming forward that formally asks the county to look at some specific ones that seem to, I mean, I don't want to say be a no-brainer, because obviously there's always going to be some people who may think what we do has inconvenienced them or otherwise wasn't the smartest choice. But we're hoping to send a resolution to the county soon with a whole list of ideas. And I would think that they're also looking at it. Even the freeholders that are there now haven't, you know, they're aware that Easton Avenue is a situation that needs to be dealt with further going forward. So more to come with that, okay? But please don't think that these efforts are specifically trying to make your life more difficult, because they're not. They're really just trying to keep what has obviously been a situation with some horrible accidents over the decades, and even most recently. Mr. Clyde, I think he left, but he not only has been an asset to this town as a council person, but again, as his award reflected tonight, the Environmental Commission. And some people may think a stream cleanup is not a real great way to spend your Saturday. Well, it actually is a lot more fun than I would have thought the couple times that I went out there. And I know he's got a lot of adults and Boy Scouts and other youth groups out there involved. And they had a ball. So not only, I think, does it teach them a lot about the environment and public service, but it helps keeps this town cleaner, because God knows we have some streams here which just seem to be a magnet for litter and debris over the years. So I thank Mr. Clyde for that. And everything that we hear from the public, we hear and we take to heart and see what comes from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasanella. Councilwoman Kimberly Francois.
Thank you for coming out and giving us some input about the left turn, no left turn on Eastern Avenue. I think I need a little bit more information about that. Our intention was to make things better, but sometimes in our intention to make improvements, we may not always consider all options. So that's certainly something that I appreciate the fact that you came out and gave us some advisement on that. Other than that, I'd like to say I hope everybody had a happy Thanksgiving, peaceful Thanksgiving, and are looking forward to more happy holidays. I'd like to leave that on a personal, much more upbeat note than what I've heard on some of the things here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, former mayor, former deputy, Councilwoman Francois. Councilman Charles Onijaka.
Yeah, Mayor. In fact, during the last snowstorm, it took me almost 6 hours to drive on the turnpike, and the road was unbearable. But immediately I came into Franklin, there was a difference. So, which means our crew really took care of the snow. So I know it was a challenge, but the way they handled it was very, very impressive. I just want to say thank you to them. They did a good job. Thank you, Mayor. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Will Galtieri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman, sorry.
Okay.
Galtieri.
So let me start with the left-hand turn. I'm going to defer the expertise to Mr. Vornlocker and also the police department. Again, the intention was to try to make a tough area safer. It wasn't to interfere with the lives of the residents over there. And we do get a lot of advice on this. So there was documents given to us, but again, there's always room for, unfortunately, sometimes there's reactions, and then there needs to be, I guess, amendments to those reactions. So I know that area is tough, especially I know some of the comments are about even shopping plazas along there and everything. My wife and I, every time we go to Dunkin' Donuts, have the same conversation too. So, and I have to remind her there's no way into there easily then if you go a certain way. And It's unfortunately the nature of the area. It's a very heavily congested area. I have to drive through there daily also to go to work. So, but that being said, I will again defer to Mr. Vornlacher, and I hope that he can give you some more of the answers. It is an area, I've been following the area for 18 years since I was old enough to drive. So that's high school. And it's something that does frustrate me, and I know that Councilman Vasanel and I do have that as one of our targeted areas to try to help improve. That doesn't give you the answer tonight that you're looking for reversal or anything, but hopefully we can find some sort of resolution. I mean, it might be fixing some of the area, also investing more. One thing I would like to highlight that came out of Public Works that I know is a comment for that area also is fire hydrants. In particular, I know with the water improvement, that should help also because there will be some hydrants coming into the area. That doesn't address your left-hand turn issue, but it does show that we are investing. That is an area of investment that we're looking. So maybe we have to do more. So that's the first one. Second, Public Works, Councilman Chase and Councilman Vasanel have already discussed most of it, but Mr. Connell, you did send me an email about lining of pipes, so it helped that we had that today. I can actually speak to half of that. But the other half, I did get a clarification. The type that you referenced is not done for water, and with the exception of the Little Rocky Hill, the overall goal is not to do relining, but rather replacement for water, because it gives a longer shelf life to the pipes and to the infrastructure. So the goal is to extend, not extend the life of existing, but rather to make sure it actually is durable for. I believe the target's between 100 and 150 years system. However, for the type that you referenced is being done in the Foxwood area for sanitary sewers, and that's to try to make the area that make that infrastructure last longer. Again, sanitary sewers are much different than drinking water. So drinking water, we want to make sure are closed. Sanitary sewers, we want to make sure that we don't have excess groundwater going into them. So the type of lining that you referenced is actually being done in this town. It's something that we're trying to do in certain areas. Other areas, unfortunately, the pipes are so old that we just are going to have to do replacement. But with Public Works, I want to get you an answer on that tonight. And from the other side that I didn't already know. Sewage Authority is next week, so I don't have anything to report to that. I was down at the League of Municipalities, and also the Association of Environmental Authorities 2 weeks ago. So the focus for AEA is water, stormwater, and wastewater treatment. I must say that Franklin is in very good shape in compared to many other municipalities. So infrastructure is an area that we are focusing on, and that's important to ensure that we're serving you. So I would like to pass that back, but there are some good feedback that I got from that we will be looking at further. One of the cool sessions I got to, or cooler for me, is I'm very into smart technology. I did sit through a session on smart cities at the League, and there's some good ideas coming out of there that in the coming months I want to do more research on. It's something, a good example of what's out there is smart lighting technology, where lights are being used in certain cities to help warn drivers where deer are. So the light might get brighter on the street lights so you can see where there's a human or a deer, and that'll help also make the area safer. That's just one example, but that's something that I want to bring, and I think that'll help improve. Again, if it's even cost effective, but reading doesn't hurt. So that's definitely something that I'm going to be looking into. The last thing I just want to say is if my calendar is correct, I hope that my Google Calendar didn't fail me, but I believe this Sunday starts Hanukkah. So I want to say happy Hanukkah to all the residents that celebrate. We do have another meeting before the Christmas season, but at least happy Hanukkah to all our. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, I heard something about Sunday. When I was in the military, I learned that the British, when someone is promoted, say from captain to major, they don't call them major until they actually get the promotion, but they're called a brevet major. So, Brevet Freeholder Robinson, you're next.
To save my voice, And to save the strain on people from hearing me and following doctor's orders, I've given you my notes so you can incorporate them into yours. This has been 2 weeks, so you guys, I really have to save my voice. This has been 2 weeks I've been battling this.
Thank
Following
you.
doctor's orders.
You hand me those notes again. Thank. Right. That's true. I have no short-term memory. Can the manager or you speak on the county resolution in Easton Avenue being a county road and our action to mirror that resolution? I am sure the manager, I think no force on earth will stop the manager addressing that. But thank you. So I too went to the League, now for my comments, I too went to the League of Municipalities, and there was a large discussion there about the opiate epidemic. And so I came back and I asked some questions of our manager. The news that I'm about to reflect or regurgitate is rather favorable, so favorable that I do it hesitantly. And if it is incorrect, I ask anyone to correct me on it so that I will be better informed and council would be better able to take action. But I found the manager got the information for me that we are reporting no opiate deaths in Franklin in the recent months, and only 2 applications of Narcan in the recent months. Was that your understanding? Did I understand that correctly?
That sounds about right. That was from the chief of police.
So it sounds as if we are addressing this appropriately in town. There are other places in the state and in the country where the epidemic is much worse. Yes, 2 is more than anyone would like, but compared to the rest of the state or other parts of the state, it sounds like we're applying the appropriate resources. Resources are limited. You don't want to over-apply to one thing and then miss something else. There was another large discussion at the League about ICE. That's stand for?
Immigration and Custom Enforcement.
Thank you. And there was an issue in Middlesex County, and that ICE interactions had increased greatly in a town in Middlesex County. And so I asked our chief of police, what has our interactions with ICE been in the last year? And he responded 0. I kind of grilled him on it. Well, what does 0 mean? Does that mean, no actual actions, but you're talking? He said, no, there's just no interaction between them and ICE. Now, that doesn't mean that if ICE had a dangerous situation and asked for backup, that we wouldn't supply backup. But basically, we are not reporting people to ICE because we've arrested them. We don't ask them their immigration status. So I was pleased with that, because we do not want our citizens or our residents to be afraid to speak to the police, to report crimes out of fear that they might be reported to ICE. I too want to congratulate John Clyde. He's been a pillar of this community and done service to this community for decades, and I'm sure he will continue to do so.
Just about 40 years.
That would be 4 decades. You may have noticed in the Courier News that the Franklin Police Department was voted the best police department in Somerset County. And that's pretty impressive, because the Courier News doesn't service Franklin that much. So that means people outside of Franklin had to be voting for that. The only other thing in Franklin that was recognized as among the best, not the best, but among the best, was the Franklin Township Library. So very pleased about that. We have some great restaurants. I've partaken too much of a few of them, and I hope people will recognize that in the future. But I was very pleased to see our police force, which we have some members here now, being recognized. Those of you with high-definition TV might notice my pitiful beard that I didn't start growing until about Thanksgiving. I'm a late starter, but it was in recognition of Grovember or Movember or but Prostate Awareness Month, and I can't wait to shave it off. Last year, I had a wedding palooza on Valentine's Day, where I married as many people who as asked to be married on Valentine's Day. I think there was roughly a dozen ceremonies done. They were rapid-fire ceremonies. I'm sorry to say there will not be a wedding palooza this year because it will be replaced by the wedding extravaganza, which I will basically do the same thing. Except in addition, I am toying with, and I've talked to Second Chance for Animals and to our clerk, I will perform free of licensing fees, but for the price of a $50 donation to Second Chance for Animals, I will perform pet weddings if anyone so wishes to do so. It is not for us to judge or question, it is for us to perform. And that obviously is a way to raise some money for the Second Chance and for our animal shelter. Metler Bridge, I got a question from a citizen on Metler Bridge, and we answered that, and I learned a lot from it. I call it the Metler Bridge. At the bridge over the stream on Metler Road near Colonial Park, that person was concerned because it appeared to them no work was being done, and as the manager informed me, that's because no work has been done. And that is because every time they try to drain the stream underneath well enough, or the pond leading to the stream well enough so that they could shore it up, we get another monsoon coming through, and so weather is delaying it. And the manager can fill you in on a couple more details about when, weather permitting, the expected completion of that project will be done. With all the other things going on in town and the flooding of the causeways, it is making for some traffic issues in the East Millstone area, which I am realizing every day. Easton Avenue, I too thank the people from Easton Avenue for coming. A number of council members have addressed it, so I'm sure the manager will at least have Sergeant Hagman, as well as yourself, because you're knowledgeable in it, consider the issues brought up. I will say for my part, so I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer, and I'm a pilot, and in all of those things I know that if you make snap judgments without knowing things and considering all the things, unintended consequences can be immense. None of us here, other than the manager, are traffic professionals. So I thank you for your suggestions. You saw my interest in them, and I want them passed on to Sergeant Hagman, who is our professional. But I feel that we are kind of at the mercy of what they tell us, because I can't say put in a light, because, by the way, a light's $250,000, just not that that's the limiting factor, but just so you know. I can't say put in a light because I have no idea what the consequences would be and what the laws are around it. I can't say allow left turns at certain times of the day because I don't know how that is affected. There's been people looking at the science of this since Henry Ford. But I do recognize your concerns. I would like the manager to pass that on to the appropriate people and come up with an answer. And that answer might be, no, it's just the way it should be, or it might be, hey, that's a good idea, or here's something else. That is all I have. Mr. Manager, your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just some comments before I speak about Easton Avenue, just on some events that are upcoming before our next council meeting. On December 7th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. in the municipal complex, we'll have our annual holiday tree lighting ceremony. That is a Friday, December 7th. And so come and ring, as the flyer says. I'm not that creative. Ring in the holidays at Franklin Township's holiday tree lighting. Kick off the start of the season with festive music, good tidings, and hot cocoa. Make someone's holiday a little bit brighter and donate to the angel giving tree that will be at the Community Senior Center during this holiday season. And you can find all the information on that on our website. The following day, Second Chance for Animals will be sponsoring at Sampson G. Smith School a photo with Santa Paws for your pets. If you want to come and have your photo taken with Santa Claus, that can happen on Saturday, December 8th from 10:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Sampson G. Smith School. Okay, so now I've had an opportunity to put some thoughts together on the Easton Avenue issue, and I don't want this to be considered all-inclusive. The Easton Avenue corridor has been studied for safety issues for as long as I have been here in Franklin Township, and certainly during my time as the Traffic Safety Bureau supervisor or its commander or as the township manager. A number of different suggestions have been made, and it's funny, I look and listen to the suggestions and the discussions today, and I think how they're counter to the discussions that were held 2 weeks ago when you adopted these ordinances, or 3 weeks ago now, I guess, and that there was the calls for a center median, which would permanently prohibit all left turns, both to and from Easton Avenue during that stretch, and that has been a recommendation in the past, and we talked about why that's not practical at this particular point due to the physical restraints and the costs associated with it. The traffic signal is not one that would be considered, and it would, and oftentimes people think that the traffic signal is the panacea to issues related to turn problems. The reality is that traffic signals often wind up causing more accidents than they prevent. While they may prevent angle accidents, which are the more dangerous type of accidents that occur and oftentimes result in more injuries, the rear end accidents, and given the volume on Easton Avenue, and also its close proximity to Cedar Grove Lane as well as Willow Avenue, it really makes it impractical and not really a recommended choice. This decision to restrict or to recommend the restriction on left turns was not one that resulted as a result of discussions with this most recent fatality on Easton Avenue, but was as a part of the discussions about the safety of the entire corridor that were had with staff members from Franklin Township along with the Somerset County Engineering Department, who really oversees most of the regulations as it relates to Easton Avenue. There are always two sides of the story, and you as elected officials are charged with kind of making those tough decisions at times, and you do rely on your staff to make recommendations, and we did make recommendations in this particular circumstance. I usually don't let these things get to me. There was an article published online recently by one of our local online news services that involved an interview or questions that were posed to me personally, and that article then involved an interview of a woman who lives here in Franklin Township, whose son was killed in a motor vehicle accident on Easton Avenue at Lakeside in 2013. The question being, why didn't we do this as a result of that accident? And my answer, that generally accepted engineering practices would not call for a knee-jerk reaction, but that a thorough study be done. And the response from this mother was, I think that's awful. What if that was his son? What if it was his son that was the first accident and he died? Would they change the laws then? I think they would. I don't have that much power to get laws changed. I can make recommendations where I think it's appropriate, but I had the unenviable task of handling a great number of motor vehicle fatalities in my time as a police officer, and it is not something that I wish upon anyone to have to go through that. And I had the task of going to tell parents that their child was killed in a motor vehicle accident, and it's not one that I ever wish on anyone. And this is not an easy decision, but for what I consider at this particular point, we can deal with some of the safety issues that are currently existing on Johnny Bush and 4th Street and 9th Street, because 4th Street and 9th Street. Because I will have the Traffic Safety Bureau look at those and see if there are some things that can be done to alleviate some of the concerns of the residents on Johnny Bush. But I truly believe that this council made the right decision in prohibiting those turns. And the traffic counts that were done, and I pulled them up, I do have them, in the morning peak hours, from Lakeside, Culver, and Walnut combined, there were only 26 vehicles during that period of time making a left-hand turn from all three combined. And I say only because on Easton Avenue during that period of time, there were 2,260 vehicles heading in the direction of Easton Avenue, and there were 1,370 vehicles heading, in the direction of 287, and 1,370 heading in the direction of New Brunswick. That's 3,500, 3,600 vehicles on Easton Avenue for those 26 cars that turned out and made left-hand turns out of those three side streets combined. In the interest of safety for all of those traveling down that corridor, I think that the decision is correct. The afternoon hours are even more extreme, with even less people making left turns out of those side streets during the peak hours, and more people traveling the peak hour on Easton Avenue. The number goes even more skewed. I know that there are issues, and people that live in those neighborhoods, there will be sometimes there is an inconvenience for some for the greater good of the population here. There are a great deal of people traveling down Easton Avenue every day. And the left turn has reached a point from those side streets that it is just not a safe movement. And there are those who will say that at 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, it might be safe. It might be. I had another gentleman who's in the audience here today come to that left turn and also send me an email saying that he had concerns about the sight line from Culver, and then the sight line is even more exaggerated from Lakeside. This is an area that it was not a knee-jerk reaction. This was not as a result of the most recent fatality on Easton Avenue and Culver. This was as a result of long-standing discussions about the safety of this particular road in Franklin Township. And this recommendation came as a result of that, and as a result of an engineering study that was conducted. And I said May earlier, and this was, I'm looking for the date on this, May 3rd of 2018 was this report. So this was done in May of 2018, really much prior to this fatality, but certainly after the fatality that the mother was quoted in at Lakeside and Easton back in 2013. I don't know that there's any magic answer. I wish there was. If there was a magic answer, I would give it to you, because then there would be no fatalities and no crashes at all, and we would be able to eliminate all of them. I think the effort here was to try to eliminate the most serious possibilities, and we can certainly look to try to create a safer environment for 4th and Johnny Bush, and 9th and Johnny Bush, and I guess we would go right across and include Walnut and Culver out to Willow. for those residents of Johnny Bush who are having the issues, because I won't dismiss them. They very well may exist, but we have to look at what the greater picture is, and we can certainly look at the smaller one here and see if there's some relief that can be granted for that. But I don't recommend that these ordinances be rescinded. I believe that they're necessary. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Along those lines.
Yes, sir.
I was also asked by someone else, and you were aware of the question. But perhaps we can pass on to the county, should they be allowing left turns into Imperial?
Into the Imperial. So you and I did speak about that privately. So when the Imperial was redone from when it was McAteers, for those of you who remember that, a long time ago, it seems.
Not that long.
Not that long ago. Well, I know. So anyway, the rebuilding of that site triggered a site plan application to our planning board, and our planning board, and maybe it was because I was the traffic sergeant at the time, it required the Imperial to prohibit left turns out of the driveway. Because I probably still had that. I had that thought back then too, didn't I? Yeah, I did. But the county didn't require them to prohibit left turns in. I certainly think that it's appropriate that the left turns be prohibited into the Imperial, especially given the fact that they now have a back driveway through the hotel off of Cedar Grove Lane that gives them full access, both left and right, both from northbound and southbound Easton Avenue via Cedar Grove Lane. And so I think that that's appropriate, and that'll be something that I'll make a recommendation tomorrow that Sergeant Hagman follow up with the county on. The shopping center presents a different circumstance, and it is different in that, given its driveway is in such close proximity to a traffic signal, breaks in the traffic are created that aren't created elsewhere along the corridor. And it also is a shopping center that, if you prohibit left turns in and out of that shopping center, you basically shut that shopping center down to any traffic coming in from those directions, because you can't do it because of the center concrete island on Cedar Grove Lane on the approach to the traffic signal. It doesn't constitute the same hazards that it does elsewhere, because it's not free flow traffic generally at that intersection, given the fact that the signal exists there. And this is something, this is an area that not only do I travel this because of my job, but I live right around the corner from there. So I certainly am there often. And I certainly appreciate the fact that it may not be easy, but the speeds on Easton Avenue when people make the lefts in and out are not the same as they are further up the road in the area of Lakeside and Culver and Walnut. So, but I'll talk to Sergeant Hagman about not only Johnny Bush, but about the Imperial, because I think that that's a reasonable progression on this topic as far as the Imperial is concerned and as far as Johnny Bush is concerned.
Thank you. We're now on to council discussion items, of which there are none. We have the approval of the minutes. I present the following minutes for approval by the Township Council. The council work session, regular meeting, and executive sessions of November 8th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Do I have a motion on the...
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections? All in favor of, I'm sorry, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Abstain, since I wasn't there.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Onijaka? Councilman Prasad?
Abstain.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Approval of the warrants. The warrants are the bills the council pays. Warrants in the amount of $4,786,882.93 on November 27, 2018 are presented to the Township Council for payment. Do I have a motion on the warrants?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Anyone want to ask about a particular item? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
By the way, Deputy Mayor Chanel Robinson had a family emergency, and that's why she has left. We are now on to public hearings and adoption of ordinances on second reading. Second readings are where we actually pass or don't pass the ordinance. We have a first reading at least 2 weeks before to announce the ordinance, and now it's time for the second reading to consider the ordinance itself. Ordinance 4252-18, ordinance amending the municipal code of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 112, Land Development Regulations, Section 112-4, Definitions and Attachment 1, Schedule 1, to allow body art establishments as a permitted use in the NB, GB, HBD, and RDO zoning districts is presented for public hearing and final adoption. The public hearing has been noticed as required. This is an ordinance to allow tattoo parlors in certain areas. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening for public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We're open to public discussion. Please state your name, address, discussion on this item only.
Bill Connell, 25 Spring Street. What is NB, GB, HBD, and RDO, briefly? Like, what are those, what's the difference from where?
NB is Neighborhood Business Zone, GB is General Business Zone, HPD is Hamilton Street Business District, and RDO is the Retail Overlay Zone.
Is there a reason you're changing it, a specific reason, or?
Is there a reason why they're changing?
Until now,
The
tattoo
ordinance.
parlors have been not allowed in any place, which by quirk of the New Jersey laws, it almost means they're allowed everywhere. If you don't allow them anywhere, then someone can ask for a variance to anywhere. A few years ago, maybe even 10 or 20 years ago, tattoos were not as popular as now. And I think people just felt like they didn't want them. This is allowing them in certain areas. It's not changing it from other areas to these areas, it's just allowing it in certain areas.
So I can get like a Phil Kramer tattoo if I want to?
I think those would be probably very popular.
Okay.
Any other members of the public?
Mayor, see no one come forward, a motion to close the public portion of the hearing on this ordinance.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Public hearing is closed. Do I have a motion on the item?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? Hearing and seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
And it passes. Ordinance 4256-18, an ordinance releasing, extinguishing, and vacating the rights of the public of a street known as Stone Place in the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, is presented for public hearing and final adoption. The public hearing has been noticed as required. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Anyone wishing to speak on this item only, it is to vacate a street next to the First Baptist Church.
Mr. Mayor, seeing no one come forward, I make a motion, we close public discussion.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item is closed on this area. So there's a street next to the First Baptist Church. It's kind of a little dead-end street, and it's been somewhat of a nuisance because people have been parking there, especially trucks have been parking there. If you Google map it, you see trucks there. If you Google street it, you see a different truck there. And it's a nuisance to the neighborhood. So if we vacate it, then the people adjacent to it, including First Baptist Church, can own that, move fences, and close off the street and stop that nuisance. I'm sorry, yes, we moved, did we move the item? No. So
A motion for passage.
motion for passage.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item?
I would just like to thank our township manager for taking, this has been hanging around for a while, and he took care of it for me, so thank you very much. And you were right, Mr. Mayor. It is part of First Baptist, but it's also part of the homeowner across the street. And by doing this, by giving someone 25 feet on both sides, you allow them to fence it off and do what they want to do on one side or the other. That's the basic, the intention of this, because again, no one wants to see what's on the other side of the street, and that includes the trucks, as you just noted. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
By the way, I live 4 blocks away.
More than 200 feet, I hope.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad? Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Ordinance 4257-18, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 50, Police Department, Article 1, Section 50-4, composition and titles is presented for the public hearing and final adoption. The public hearing has been noticed as is required. Do I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of opening to the public, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We are open to the public on this item only. Basically, this is increasing the size of our police force by 3.
Mayor, seeing no one coming forward from the public, a motion to close the public portion of the hearing on this ordinance.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All in favor of closing public discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Public discussion is closed. Do I have a motion on the item?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the item? This was brought to us by the Chief of Police and Captain. Went through the Financial Oversight Committee. Approved by the 3 people there. Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Chaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
It passes. We are now on to ordinances on first reading. This is essentially where we let the public know of ordinances coming up so they can contemplate it and perhaps show up for public discussion on the second reading. This is ordinance 4258-18, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 81, Affordable Housing, with the addition of Section 81-6, Administrative Approval of Mortgage Discharge of Affordable Housing Agreements and Mortgage Subordinations. The foregoing ordinance is presented to the Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting and publication in accordance with the law and public hearing, and final adoption on Tuesday, December 11, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. The Township Attorney seems to be saddling up here.
No, I just want to let council know, over the course of at least my 20 years of being here, you see on your agenda pretty frequently the resolutions that allow for either the discharge of a mortgage that has been repaid, or if there's a sale of an affordable housing unit, a replacement mortgage, or if somebody refinances a house where they have maybe a loan with us for some rehab. They all require council resolutions, and unfortunately, the process has become cumbersome. This will allow staff to react to people to help them get through their real estate closings in a more efficient way. There really is not any discretion with council with any of these actions, so there's really not a need to bring individual resolutions and delay by 2 weeks or a month getting these documents back to people who are in closings.
So this is an ordinance to allow it to be handled administratively as opposed to by individual resolutions.
Correct.
So we had a motion and a second, and that was the beginning of the discussion. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Ordinance 4259-18, amending the Code of the Township of Franklin, Chapter 271. I'm sorry. Vasanella, would you like to introduce this?
Sure, Mayor. Ordinance number 4259-18, amending the Code of the Township of Franklin, Chapter 271, peddling and soliciting and providing a new section, 271-17, collection, preparation, and maintenance of a non-solicitation list. And basically, Mayor, and for everyone else may not be familiar, this would simply amend the ordinance we have now, which if some business in town wants to go door to door to solicit commercial a product, selling basically their service or product, they register with the township, so the township's aware that they are, as the term is, peddling or soliciting. Across the state, there's been several communities over the years that have allowed for people to opt out, to basically be on a list that, just for example, you have younger children home after school alone, you're a senior citizen living alone. I mean, you can go down the whole litany. Just some people might work shifts and don't want to be woken up in the middle of the daytime when they're sleeping. Whatever the reason is, they can sign up on a list, and simply the commercial entity, peddler, solicitor, whatever you want to call them, would have that list and would be beholden not to knock on that door and bother that person. This does have nothing to do with nonprofit organizations, which are exempt, and I believe religious, political, but for commercial entities, which a lot of people don't want to be solicited for whatever reason, they would be able to opt out. And it's no cost to anybody, really. There's just a list that would be maintained and updated, I think, a few times a year. And did I explain that right, Manager?
I believe you got it exactly right.
Okay. So just another step into helping improve the quality of life and perhaps some safety concerns or other issues for people. And we have a vast array of people in this town, like I said, who may want to benefit by that. So that's what that is, Mayor. And I read it. I don't know if I can motion it or someone else has to motion it.
You can motion it, but wait, I have some verbiage I have to read.
I'm sorry.
I don't want to be beaten up. Foregoing ordinance is presented to Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting, publication in accordance with law, and public hearing and final adoption on Tuesday, December 11th, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Complex. Mr. Vasanella, would you like to motion this?
Sure, motion it.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the item? Hearing none, Madam Master Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Ordinance 4260-18, an ordinance amending the code of the Township of Franklin, County of Somerset, and State of New Jersey, more particularly Chapter 226, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 226-19, through streets, and Section 226-20, stop intersections. The foregoing ordinance is presented to Township Council for adoption on first reading, posting, publication in accordance with the law, and public hearing and final adoption on Tuesday, December 11, 2018, at 7 p.m. at the municipal complex. Do I have a motion?
Motion to introduce.
And a second. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. So this is essentially to add stop signs at Cottontail and Pierce and Belmont and Pierce. And this was at the suggestion of whom, Mr. Manager?
So this was just, much like Easton Avenue, this was as a result of an accident survey and study of the intersection and complaints from people who drive through those two intersections about the difficulty of making left turns from the stop signs. So these are going to multi-way stop intersections at both Pierce and Belmont and Pierce and Cottontail. These two intersections were actually referenced in my 2003 report when we did the Middlebush bypass study and ways to circumvent Cedar Grove Lane during peak hour periods. And recommendations back then were made for these types of improvements. Actually, Cottontail Lane and Pierce was calling for a traffic signal because it was probably warranted then. So unfortunately, sometimes the wheels move slowly.
Any other, I'm sorry. Yes, do we have a motion?
We did
Yeah, just a comment. I almost lost my son on that intersection. He totaled his car. And it would have been a whole different chapter. And I ended up going to court and pleading that something be done. And so four-way stop signs were needed back then, and I'm talking back in '83.
Mr. Manager, I have one little question.
Yes, sir.
In the ordinance, if I said, I want a stop sign on XYZ Street, say Spring Street.
Okay, that'd be a good place to put it, right in the middle of the block, Bill.
Yeah, a little bit towards the northern end.
And you went out, I guess that would be a part of the traffic cop or something like that, police section that would go out and say, we have 100 cars and they just blow right through the street, or something of that nature. Would it require a new ordinance, or would it go through this ordinance?
So stop intersections, that was loud. So stop intersections, like many other regulations that are governed by state law, but then also governed by municipal ordinance, they're established. The prohibition is established by municipal ordinance. We Chapter 226 is all of those things. And Chapter 226 includes stop intersections, yield intersections, through streets, turn prohibitions, no passing lanes, parking violations. All of those things are all encompassed under one chapter in our code. And stop intersections all of the stop intersections are under one part of that code. And so that's why you see these two are being done under the same ordinance, under the same code citation.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to comment, since this is an area close to me. I think this is significantly beneficial, especially with we've been fortunate enough to grow that area economically. And given the increased vehicular traffic, both trucks and workers, this should definitely be good. I'm sure on the weekend people might complain a little bit because you're not going to be able to go as fast down Cottontail. You're going to have to stop. But that's not always a negative thing, and we're keeping movement there. But this definitely should help a little bit on the weekdays. And I know also, Belmont was also raised as a concern because it's used by students exiting the high school to bypass. So hopefully this will give the younger drivers an opportunity to drive a little safer through that area and have a
To learn how to navigate a four-way stop.
that too, but make it just a little safer for them also, that they can actually enter the intersection safer. It is a little tougher to see over there. I've driven through there a bunch recently, even to put more focus on it, and this should be good. So hopefully this doesn't have any unintended consequences, but it sounds like we've done enough studies on this also to feel, and it's been needed for significantly. So.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Onijaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
We are now on to the consent agenda, part of my cough. Items A through U, as listed on the consent agenda portion of this meeting, are presented to Township Council for adoption. Do I have a motion and
Mr. Mayor?
So moved.
and a second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? Anyone like to pull an item or discuss an item?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Quick, I know the answer to this, but for the people at home, they might catch this item. Resolution 18438, amend the 2018 New Jersey State Contract, Morris County Cooperative Pricing Program, Middlesex Regional Cooperative Pricing Program, and Somerset County vendors. Now, that squares with Resolution 18454, award a contract to the Middlesex Regional Cooperative Purchasing Program, heat pumps for Van Loo Historic Home. Now, those two I understand because we belong to a cooperative, and I believe we can get things at a lower price than we would on the open market. But I wanted to know how that squared with Resolution Q 18450, awarded bid for fire hydrants and fire hydrant and hydrant parts, Kennedy Culver and Supply Company, Capital Supply and Brent Materials, December 1st, 2018 to November 30th, 2019, amount to exceed, not to exceed $250,000 annually for each vendor. The reason why I brought that up, was it cheaper for us to just go out and put the bid out for those hydrant parts, or would it have been cheaper to go within the cooperative?
So obviously, purchasing is not something that I can drill down to a 30-second response and how we do things, because we buy thousands of things every year and spend millions of dollars doing it. Sometimes it's more beneficial for us to go out for competitive bid, depending on what the commodity is. In this particular case, it's for fire hydrants and hydrant parts. Those the particular fire hydrants that we have here in Franklin Township, those parts and the fire hydrants as a whole may not be available on any of the cooperative purchasing agreements or the state contracts that we have, so we're forced to go out to bid on our own for those particular things. It also might be that the volume is so much that it's more beneficial for us to do it on our own rather than utilize a cooperative contract. There's a great number of differences in how we buy things, the first one that you mentioned, we are a member of a number of different cooperative purchasing purchasing cooperatives, I should say. That was just simply adding vendors to existing cooperatives that we're a member of that were not included in that resolution, that giant resolution that you do in January every year to include all of our vendors that we purchase from. U, which is 18454, the heat pumps for Van Loo are part of it, and that has nothing to do with the adding of vendors, but that just coincidentally is on our agenda to purchase those things from one of the vendors that was awarded a contract through a cooperative purchasing program. That's the advantage of cooperative purchasing programs. They go out to bid for all of those commodities, and they spend the money to do that process so that we don't have to. But sometimes we have to.
Thank you. I think that was a thorough explanation as it was, and I think our residents just learned a lot. Thank you.
I have one more question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Along those lines, I was going to ask for Resolution 8G, 18-4. Is this the first time we're entering to the cooperative pricing system with Bergen County?
I'm going up to G, you could bear with me. Yes, actually, this is the first time. So that's a resolution to allow us to utilize the cooperative pricing system from Bergen County.
Okay.
And so.
Yeah, because I didn't think we had that before.
No, we never had that one before, and this has given us another option.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
See, I missed that puppy. Thank you, Ms. Francois, for bringing that up.
Now, a question for the manager.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any way of comparing these cooperative pricing agreements
Well,
with the
so
various?
our employees, when they prepare their purchase requisitions and prior to them being converted to a purchase order, there's a process involved that calls for us to seek out the lowest price for any commodity, and they go through. And that's why we have a purchasing agent. That the final stop is our purchasing agent. She's in the state of New Jersey, there are things called qualified purchasing agents. She is one, and one of her responsibilities is to make sure that the price that we're paying is through a cooperative with the lowest price.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Item 15, resolutions to be voted on separately. These items are often voted on separately because they've been added late. The following resolution is presented to the Township Council for adoption. Resolution 18-455, authorized budget transfer request of calendar year 2018 budget funds. So when we make a budget up at the beginning of the year, money has to be spent in certain categories, and you can't switch categories until near the end of the year. The state allows us to do some switching because, you know, as often said, man plans and God laughs. This is to move some money around so that we can cover some deficits. So do we have a motion on the item?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the item? Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
Yes.
Item 16, old business, boards, commissions, committees, and vacancies. Does anyone have any nominations? Hearing none. Item 17, executive session.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, before you go down there, I want to just give a township manager, I caught him off guard with that because I usually drop it down on his desk so he has a thorough explanation for it, but I caught him off guard and I just wanted to apologize. Okay.
Executive session, resolution 18-456, authorized executive session, acquisition of property, Elizabeth Avenue and Old Georgetown Road, and contract negotiations, PBA/SOA update. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Chase?
Yes.
Councilwoman Francois?
Yes.
Councilman Galtieri?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Councilman Oni Jaka?
Yes.
Councilman Prasad?
Yes.
Councilman Vasanella?
Yes.
Councilman Wright?
So at this time, the Township Council will adjourn to executive session to discuss the above items as mentioned. No other actions will be taken by the Township Council at the conclusion of the executive session. Therefore, the recording of this meeting will end now. The meeting is essentially adjourned. Be well, Franklin.